Hi, everybody. For those few of you who may not know who I am yet, I'm BJ. I'm the genealogy specialist at Maine State Library. And this is one of what I'm calling my Machine Magic Monday series. And today I'm going to talk about the ways I use spreadsheets and a little bit, the couple techniques that will get you through most of what you would need to do to use a spreadsheet for genealogy. Now, let me share my screen momentarily. You can do these in Word. Oh, we paused because I moved the, okay. Here we go. So this is in Word, but it's hard. You have to add new lines. It can be tricky. It's hard to sort. So so you can do it there. But I prefer to do these in Excel or Google Sheets or the Open Office version. So let's take a look. Oh, this looks like it's going to make me change sharing every time. So we'll start with this one.
We're seeing all the people. There we go.
Yeah, I had to change. I can't just go into Excel. I'm going to have to change sharing each time, just so you guys are aware that there's going to be a little bit of complication there. So this is a case I did for a friend. We were trying to figure out where her grandfather, basically her grandfather's life story. She had always thought he was named Aaron, but all the records I found called him Abraham. One called him Harris Rosen, and the only one he actually signed, he signed it A. Rosen. So obviously that doesn't help us with Aaron versus Abraham. So one of the things I did, and I will blow this up a little so you don't need to see the details so much, but why is this not letting me? One of the things I did on this is I color-coded it. So anything that's from the source that was created at the time, a birth record, anything like that is in purple. If it's a later source, say something, here's something about from the 1911 census record that talks about where one of the children was born, or these two records are about their marriage from a later birth record, are in green. And then the things where I made it drew a conclusion from other events, I put it in orange. So for example, all of the records coalesced around being born in Russian Poland around 1864. And so that's in orange, but that's mostly from census records and a couple marriage records that gave his age and birthplace. So that's one of the things that is really handy to be able to do, and I'm going to show you how to do it in a later one. The columns vary depending on what I'm doing. So in this one, I have the date, I have the location, I put the country in a separate column to make it easy, because I have records from him from Scotland, Ireland, England, and Canada, as well as deduced records from Russian Poland. So I put that in a separate column so I could see quickly instead of having to figure out where something was. The type of record, the primary participant, which in the case of a child being born is the child's name, and then the other participants, like the parents' names or the spouse or whatever, in a second column, and then the source. I noted his occupation if it was listed, because one of the things we were trying to do was confirm a family story that he'd been a fur trader and had sold furs to the British royal family. And so we figured that was worth, so in this case, it was worth keeping track of. It often is. So that's one of the nice things about doing these, is you can color code by whatever ways you like. And so if you want to color code, you click on a box. Okay, it's not letting me. So I'll have to do it in another one. So let's stop sharing this one. I'm going to close that one out. And we'll go into another one where I can show you. Here we go. So this is another one that I'm going to toy around with a bit so you can see what's going on. This is, again, it was a friend I was helping look for his great-grandmother. And as you can see, again, I have the event, I have the date that he was born, if it was given, his occupation, any address, other people mentioned, and various notes. Now you'll notice some of these are kind of cut off, if you can see them. Let me make it bigger. So one of the things here, when you're working in a spreadsheet, if you go to, why is it not working? You can adjust the size of a column. See how I'm over between the columns up here? I can drag this line. And I can tell this one still isn't here. And so I can try, it won't let me. Or if I want to make a line shorter, I can actually wrap the text and it will adjust onto 2 lines. For some reason, it's not letting me do some stuff while I'm in this. But as you can see, it's not even allowing it. Oh, there we go. So I can adjust them this way too. So you can see the whole entry. So that's one of the nice things, is you can just drag on the line and adjust the size of until it covers what you want. You can also do it, if you double click, it'll do it automatically, but I like the control of doing it myself most of the time. Now here's one trick that you'll want. If you want something to not misinterpret something where there's a date or other number, if you first put in just a single quotation mark, and then let's put in today's date. Let's see, today's, oops. It leaves it just as it was. If I go back here and take that out, it changes it. And notice it drops the first 2 digits of the, because they're mostly, these are not meant to deal with historic records. So on anything where I'm going to have a number, I put that little, and you'll see it's still interpreted that way. I would go back and fix that to be May if I was really putting that in. But that's one of the things that you can do, is anytime you've got a number, you can put a single quotation mark or anything in that cell, if you put that single quotation mark at the beginning, it will not change anything. It will just display it the way you typed it. So let's stop sharing this one and see if I can go into, okay, here's one I created, and so it looks like it's going to let me play with this. So I think the difference is some of these I downloaded and some of them I created on this computer. I have an ancestor who appears suddenly in Danvers, Massachusetts in 1815, marries a local woman. They have 2 kids. He goes off on a sea voyage and dies in the West Indies before, so he dies in 1819, 1820, so he's never on a census. Records are too early to have information about him other than his name. There are 2 different stories in the family about where he came from. A late 19th century genealogy puts him in a family, but he really doesn't fit, and the author admits that, but needless to say, that's repeated everywhere as the truth. But it mentions that, but both of the stories that are in the family mention him coming to the Salem Marblehead area with a particular sea captain as a young teen. So one of the things I've been doing is I figured maybe if I traced the sea captain, I could figure out where this John T. Sears must have come from. So I've started looking at old newspaper records and shipping records to figure out where this Captain Candler was doing most of his business, to see if I could figure out where John T. Sears came from. So you'll see here I've got the year, the date, the ship, the role Candler had, the destination, where it was leaving from, and then any other information. Now, if I want to put those little black lines around everything, I would, oh, come on. What is going on with this? I guess it doesn't let me work in this when I'm sharing the screen, which is a shame, but you can put little boxes around things. You can, as I said, fill in cells. You can change the text. The 2 things that are really nice is if you've got a series of numbers that you want to add, you highlight that series, and then if you click on this auto sum, it will add them up and put the total in the open box below them. And if it were to let me, you can also click this and get, it'll also do an auto average, which, you know, if you're looking at average number of children in a family or something. You can sort data. Over here, you would clip a box, you know, a cell, and hit sort, and you can decide, and you can sort by more than one column. So you can sort by last name and then by birth year. And you would choose those 2 options. Or you could sort by birth year and then last name, if you were doing something like going into the state archives where things are done by last name in the vital records with a period of years. And you could go, so you could go to the last name and then go through the years. So this is one, as I said, this is one of the ways I'm using a spreadsheet to keep information in order.
BJ,
Yeah,
would you leave your pointer on what you're talking about a little bit longer? Because you're moving it so quick, I
okay,
can't follow you.
okay, I will do
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, so we've got here, it looks like a paint bucket, fills in the background the way I color coded. The next one is an A with color, and that's how you would change the color of text. Let's say you wanted to highlight something that you want to double check in red, or put things you're not sure of in blue. That's where you would do that. The sort and filter is over here. These are all on the home menu. You can get much more detailed, but I'm only going to really deal with what's on the home menu here because I'm not, we're not doing a full Excel class. But the sort and filter is really nice because you can sort, or you can sort by place if you've been consistent in entering those. If I wanted to sort by ship name to see how, that way, ship name and then year, I could do that to see, what years covered that ship. The auto sum is up here, and this little down arrow is where you'd find the thing for average. And again, you can, it's really frustrating sharing, it's not letting me do, make changes the way I wanted, but that's life. So I'm going to stop sharing this one and close it so I don't get confused. And go to, I'm going to go to this one. This is a different way I use them, and let me, once again, see if it'll let me. Oh, come on. Oops, went too far. Okay. So this is one family. And what I've done here, and let me see, I'm double clicking to get that to go. That one I'm going to adjust manually and what this is that they lived in New York State, which did state censuses in 1905, 1915, and 1925, in addition to the federal censuses. And so we were looking at this family, and the woman who brought this into me had not been able to find them in the census. So we found a couple obituaries and a notice about the couple's 50th wedding anniversary party that gave a lot of information on siblings of her grandma. This is this woman here is her grandmother. So it gave information about the great grandparents, gave sibling names. And so using that, we were able to go back and without putting the last name in, we're able to get, since we knew they were living in Schenectady, New York, we were able to find them. And so what we did is across the top, we have where they were, which census it was. We then noted, as best we could read, how the last name had showed up in that census. And as you can see, it's Krajewski, Krajewski, Krasuski, Kajewski, Krasuski, Krajeska. So you can see why she was having trouble finding them in the census, right? So then what we did is we put the father and the mother, and then the children. And we knew the birth dates on a couple of the children. So this sort of khaki colored means that this census is before that child was born. So we're not expecting to find them in the census. Does that make sense? Because they haven't been born yet. We did not find Benjamin or William in later censuses or in any of the obituaries or the marriage anniversary party. We found a death record for one of the children. I don't remember which one, but the hypothesis was that for all of the rest of these, for these three with the purple, they died young. And then you can also see we coded when we knew somebody got married. This sister became a nun, so we put that there. And then the father is listed as William, as Winance and Vincent in different records. The daughter that's the great-grandmother of this patron is listed, she knew that her grandmother's birth name was Leocadia. She's listed as Lizzie as a child. And then as a young adult, she's listed as Charlotte, which is the name the patron knew her by. So this census matrix lets you track a family over time. And this helps with figuring out who should have been at home, who were we missing. Well, at this point, it makes sense she's married because she's 20, and by this next one, she would have been 25. And so, yeah, that fits in perfectly age-wise. But seeing the overlap let us figure out that even with the varied kids and the various names for Leocadia and for the father, Vincent, that this was all indeed the same family. Does that make sense? So that's one way, and we never did find them in 1925. So I don't know whether they were missed or if it is just so butchered we couldn't find it. Schenectady's just about big enough. We didn't go through the entire city, and because it's the 1925 state census, things like the enumeration district finder at Steve Morse don't work because he only did them for the federal censuses. So, as you can see, even professionals occasionally get where they can't see something. But this and the regular person's timeline, like I showed you for Aaron Rosen or Abraham Rosen, are the two things I use these for the most, because it lets you set out the data in a very orderly and visual fashion, because it's really easy to see that we've missed a couple of the censuses here. So let me close this out, and I'm going to show another one. Let's open up. This is going to be a fairly quick one. It's a project I've just started. Let me also bump, but oh, why are you not? So I have one sheet here, and these are in Danvers, Massachusetts. These are the women who were listed in the 1790 census, which means they were widows who hadn't remarried. And so one of my little projects that I want to do is I've written them out, and I want to see if I can find them either in the 1800 census on their own still, or if they've married a second husband. And so this is a little demographic project I'm working on, that I'm curious about these women. And I have a separate, oh, it's not even letting me get into that. You can create multiple sheets within a file. And so I have one here for Middleton. Sorry, this was Middleton in 1790. And I also have Danvers in 1790. And I'm going to look at the women who were listed as widows in those two towns in 1790 as almost a case study at looking at, did they remarry? If so, did they remarry from people locally, further away? if I can figure out how they met their is their second husband already embedded in their fan club before they get married. So this will be a very different type of spreadsheet for me because of that. I just did this data this much about a week ago, so I've just, not that I needed another project, but you know, it's something that's kind of interesting to me, again, because that 1790 to 1830 timeline here in northern New England is really hard to research. I'm curious how it's going to be for women in Massachusetts, where the records are better but not great for that time period. So stop sharing that one. And the last one I'm going to open up. Let me share the screen. I wonder if I do it this way. Do you have the spreadsheet now? Okay. Huh. I shared it a different way. It may work this time. So anyway, I have this mystery, again, another case. Man shows up in Leith in Scotland, gets married, has one child that I know about, and evidently dies because I find his widow remarrying. And so I'm trying to figure out who this person was. So I'm looking at all of the Jamesons that were in the area. And so these are from old city directories from Edinburgh. And looking at, I'm about to have a feline invasion here. Yeah, I can't see through you, sorry. So that I can see if I can figure out who the witnesses, he and the witnesses were on his, so I can see if I can figure out what fan club he was embedded in. So I have, you have the surname, and I'm going through, there aren't directories for every year, but I put every year in this 15-year period here. And then after I'm done, if I don't find a directory, I'll take the year out. But these Edinburgh directories are at about 3 different websites. And there's overlap, but no one of them seems to have every single one of them. So in this one, so here, this is showing that this John Miller, who was one of the witnesses, or a John Miller was one of the witnesses on the wedding. In this year was at this 26 Jamaica Street. He was, this light green background means he was not in this year's directory. And if I wanted to change the background, oh, it's going to let me do it now. I shared the screen differently. So you can choose colors. I usually choose the fairy light colors. It's enough that I can see it, but not so much that it's distracting. Like here, you notice this bright yellow line, right? It draws your eye. So now that this is letting me do things, so again, I can auto-fill these, or I can change this, where I put it over the little thing in between. Double click does it automatically, or I can drag. I don't have anything here for auto sum, so let me just do a one off on the side. We'll put 18 and 23 and 9 and 64. And so if I wanted to add these up, I would highlight them like this and then just hit auto sum, and there's the total. Or I can delete this, and let's do this again. and I can do the down arrow and do average, and there's the average. Which, you know, if you're doing certain things is very handy. So that's just something to be aware of. So yeah, here's, these are people listed in Edinburgh. These are people listed in Leith. And you can see I've got places where you get people in one directory and not others. And I haven't started on the marriages yet. Here are some of the births I've been tracking that are the right last name and right father's name and such. So you can have, and if I wanted to I can add one, and let's say I wanted to rename it to, oh, cats, Jameson deaths. I could do that as well. Scout, be nice. So that's really, but again, it's letting me see, instead of just having notes on paper, that, okay, this guy wasn't there anymore. I don't know whether he died, he moved, he just didn't bother to get his name in the directory. So it'll be interesting whether some of these people, you know, whether they reappear and move and such. And there are some of them who've moved. Some of them are at the same, like this one has moved. He's a druggist and he's moved from 28 to 33 Prince Street. So I don't know if some of this is they've renumbered, or if, but here's one who went from Antigua Street. No, sorry, that's not the one I was looking for. So here's 9 James, oh, sorry, Patterson's Court Long Market to Bank Street. So I'm pretty sure that's not the same address, just with a different number. But let me do this. I'm going to stop sharing this one. And let me open up one of these again now that I figured out how to share it, so I can, we'll open this one. And we will stop the share and do this. Okay, you have a spreadsheet now? Okay, good. This is the one I wanted to use to play around with to really show you. So again, you can auto adjust. And often if you're moving from one computer to another, you have to do this. If you want, let's say I wanted to change the font on all of this. See this little square up in the corner? If I click there, it selects everything on this sheet. And I can change it to a font that I like better. And then adjust. And let's blow this up a little so you can see. And on some of these, as I said, you can, the way to get this to wrap the text, you know, it wraps the text rather than being this huge long one. There's this wrap text feature. And again, I've color coded things in various ways for being able to see. And this is an older version. I figured out that I found the death record since then. But as I said, the color coding, and you can sort of see where there are gaps as I go down this. You know, we go from 1920 to 1923, 1930. It looks like they were out of the country for the 1930 census. He was an oil executive, and they were probably living based on where the kids were born in South Africa at the time of the 1930 census. So if you have a spreadsheet program, go in and play with it. You're not going to break it. You know, the worst thing that can happen, you know, go in and play with it. When you close it and it says, do you want to save what you've done? You can hit yes or you can hit no. And if you've just been playing and putting in, you know, numbers out of your head or whatever, you can just say no. That's how I learned to use most of these programs, is to just play around with them. But when you're really, these are most helpful when you've got those ancestors where you're just completely puzzled about some aspect of their life. It can, as I said, it can help you between the census matrix and a timeline, and really help you figure out where you've got gaps in what you have as information. Does that make sense to everybody? So these programs can do so much that I have no clue how to do, but I've showed you most of, pretty much all of the things I really do. Let me show you the sort. So the sort and filter, I've got it here. Sort A to Z. Sorry, let's do the column. So I wanted to expand the selection for everything. And this is now put, oops, let's choose a different one. Sorry, I wanted custom sort. Here's where you can say sort by column F, and then add a level, so column F, and then by column D. And it will sort that way. And if you do something you don't want to keep, like most programs, if you do Control Z, it undoes what you did. Which is always handy to know. Control Z on a Windows computer in almost every program will undo. So if you type something that you didn't mean to, hit Control Z till you get back to where you want to be. So I'm going to stop the sharing. Any questions at this point?
Just a quick comment. On a Mac, it would be the Command Z, and I call that the Oops button.
Yeah, the Oops button is a perfect way to describe it. For me, it's the damn cat button. As much as anything, it has saved me from more than one time of a cat paw on the keyboard. So, you know, there's no quick way to learn a lot of this other than going in and trying it. So one of the ancestors you're stuck on, try doing this. Oh, I know the thing I didn't show you. I am really doing well here today. Hang on a minute, I dropped the mouse. And the cats are on the other side of the room, so I can't even blame them. To add a line or a column, which is one of the things you often want to do, you put your cursor, let me share the screen, the way that lets me actually do something. And you put your cursor, let's say I wanted to add a column between C and D. I click on the column, right click on the column header and hit insert, and it adds a column. And, you know, Control Z to take that out. If I did it here, insert, and there it is. If you click on just one cell, like if I clicked here, and I do insert, it gives me the option of just adding one cell or of adding an entire row. I almost never add just one cell because it throws off everything else you've got. Because it pushes that what's in that column down and leaves everything else. And so the correlation across a row will be gone. But you can hit entire row and there's the new row. And that's one of the nice things is as you find more, you can add a row and put something in. So let me stop sharing that. So I hope that this gives you an idea of how, you know, and I fully understand you. Some of you may not want to do this, but I figured I'd show you the way I do this so that if you try to do a handwritten timeline, you understand how it can be helpful. But that add a row is the reason it's best, I think, to, if you want to do a timeline, to do it on the computer. Because then way you don't have to estimate. You know, obviously with a census matrix, you can sort of estimate what you're going to have. But when you're doing a timeline, who knows what you're going to find. So Excel costs money. Open Office is free. Google Sheets is free. They do these same things. Let me get, I don't even know what Open Office's current location is. Yeah, it's just openoffice.org. And one thing that's nice about both Open Office and Google Sheets is you can download as an Excel spreadsheet. So if somebody else has Excel or sends you an Excel spreadsheet, you can open it. So yeah, the Open Office is the open source version of a Microsoft Word, if you want to play with this without investing any money. So, okay. I'm going to stop the recording at this point.